What if, in reality, your greatest desire to be distinctive, to stand out, to receive particular recognition, is what prevents you from being free? Do you think this desire is innocuous, inspiring, or benign? Maybe, but motivation frequently conceals a silent trap, what I like to refer to as the special self. The unique self murmurs, "You must be exceptional. You must be more enlightened, more accomplished, and more appealing." To show that you are unique, you strive for accolades, promotions, and spiritual medals. However, the instant you elevate yourself, you also separate yourself from truth, nature, and other people. To stand out is to be unique, and fear is bred by separation. Do you ever worry about becoming unremarkable or forgotten when you define your value by being unique? Because it feels like death to become average if your value is based on being special. Almost every culture has been influenced by this trap. We have gurus, disciples, heroes, and celebrities. We revere individuality. However, this idolization frequently results from a misinterpretation or a profound amnesia of your true self. Wanting to stand out has a very strange quality. That you are insufficient just the way you are. That in order to merit affection, attention, or even life itself, you need to transform into someone greater, more dazzling, or more remarkable. But consider this. A tree doesn't strive to be superior to its neighbor. The sky is always brighter than the ocean. The sun does not feel uneasy when it looks at the stars. They just are. So, the ego, where does the human preoccupation with being unique originate? Ego is the source of it. Comparing, measuring, separating are what the ego thrives on. How do I rank? It asks. Am I superior to them? Am I the most creative, the most intelligent, the most compassionate, or the most spiritual? However, this pursuit is like to a dog attempting to catch its tail. You never show up. Someone else is always younger, wealthier, more attractive, more articulate, or more anything, so you never feel secure. And you will always be afraid of slipping below, as long as your identity is based on being above. This trap also deftly conceals itself in spirituality. Ironically, you want to feel superior by being the most enlightened, serene, and modest. Take a look at my enlightenment. Even if I am enlightened, it doesn't matter to me. The ego is incredibly cunning. In order to feel exceptional, it will put on any mask, including the mask of selflessness. However, what if I told you that you don't have to be unique? You are unique, not because you're like everyone else. It is not appropriate to rank you. A product is not you. Your resume is not you. Life itself is you. You are the cosmos looking through our eyes. And you start to fit in as soon as you give up attempting to stand out. You see, trying to prove your importance is what it means to desire specialness. In actuality, though, you already do. Similar to how a star is important, a river is important for its own existence rather than its credentials. You don't need to be more brilliant than other people. All you need to do is be yourself. It could sound like I'm requesting that you remain inactive, never get better, and never develop. Absolutely not. Yes, grow. Yes, expand, but not to outdo others. Develop, become a better version of yourself. That's the distinction. When improvement comes from love, the delight of unfolding, the love of becoming, it is healthy. However, when it stems from shame, the conviction that you are inadequate until you surpass others, it turns into poison. This is where the paradox lies. You get free of the paradox when you give up attempting to be unique. You've been released from the tiresome game of better. Editing, branding, and performing yourself are no longer your responsibilities. Without calculating, you're able to laugh, breathe, and love. Because, in reality, no one is unique. And for that reason, all people are sacrosanct. To be worthwhile, one does not have to be exceptional. Being here is not a contest. It's a symphony. Furthermore, no instrument in a symphony needs to be louder than the others. Everybody contributes their voice. Every individual adds to the total. Each note is significant because it is genuine, not because it is louder. Let me ask you again now. If you gave up attempting to be someone, how would your life feel? What if being the greatest at anything wasn't necessary? What if you didn't require recognition, admiration, or envy? But what if you just were? Being rather than pursuing, demonstrating, or branding. That is a restoration, a wholeness, a peace. It is the tranquility that kids experience before the world tells them that they need to change in order to gain affection. The sage's statement that the self must die refers to this tranquility. In surrender, not in aggression. Given a what? To the commonplace, the uncomplicated, and the everlasting presence that has never abandoned you, but was concealed by all of your efforts. We strive throughout our lives to be noticed, significant, and remembered. You see, our goal is to leave our mark, create a legacy, and be the ones who did it. However, what if the most peaceful people were those who were only there rather than those who established empires? Those who were awake during their lifetimes did not require remembrance. The fear of dying is closely linked to the fixation with being unique. What was the point, you ask, if I don't matter? Was I really here if no one remembers me? Thus, you attempt to evade impermanence by making yourself memorable. The hidden fact, but tell me, was a tree that fell in the forest any less wonderful if no one wrote a book about it? Was a flower any less lovely if no one took pictures of it while it bloomed? Obviously not. The same is true for you. You're not here to make an impression. You are here to sense the sacredness of this breath, this flesh, and this sky. To taste it, to touch it, to experience it. Being the best was never intended for you. You were supposed to live. Nowadays, a lot of people mistake this message for nihilism, which is the conviction that life is pointless and meaningless and that nothing matters. I'm not saying you don't matter, though. To feel entire, you don't have to be more important than other people. When you stop striving to reach above, you start to rise inside, which is a significant distinction. You start examining your own character for joy rather than approval, and something lovely emerges from that area. You become more genuine, at ease, and genuine. Quit acting like that. You quit embellishing your tale, erasing your history, and minimizing your guilt. You begin to rest in the truth of who you are and cease acting out the role of unique. An ocean wave. Yes, unique but not distinct. And this alters your relationship with other people. You stop feeling threatened by other people's success or beauty when you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to feel small to congratulate others. Without jealousy, you can admire. Since there is no competition, you can listen without making an effort to be interesting. You're making contact. Most individuals are unaware of this secret. You feel more love the less you try to be unique. Because other people were never the obstacle to love. It was the need for your ego to separate. When you let that go, love comes naturally, as your nature, not as a show or a tactic. Because presence lies beneath the distinctive mask, and it's always sufficient to be present. But it doesn't imply you won't ever want to stand out again. You will, of course. The ego is not a bad thing. It's just a habit. It seeks security. Additionally, it holds that being unique will keep you from being overlooked, forgotten, or abandoned. Thus, avoid battling your ego. Don't make a fool of it. Simply look at it. Smile whenever you find yourself wishing you were the most intelligent person in the room, the most enlightened person in the group, or the most admired person in the mirror. Ah, there it is, the trap once more. The impulse to let go of the need to be unique. By returning your focus to the present, to this breath, to this instant, to the wonder of being alive at all, rather than by coercion. This is the highest status there is. The prize is already being alive, conscious, and connected. No more is required. And that's the real freedom, my friend. The ego can never give you the freedom to belong because you never stopped belonging, not because you earned it. The freedom to express oneself for enjoyment rather than to impress. The freedom to love because it is in your nature, not because you want to be loved in return. And the liberty to pass away peacefully rather than with sorrow. Because being unique was never your purpose. You came to be authentic. And nothing is lacking when you are genuine. Let's examine some real-world examples of this trap. You begin a new endeavor, such as a company, artwork, or spiritual activity. And it starts with inquiry and delight in your heart. Eventually, though, the intellect takes over. Will I stand out because of this? Will people like this? Will I feel like I'm enough at last? Abruptly, the happiness vanishes. Anxiety takes the place of the curiosity. You're no longer doing the item for the sake of doing it. Rather, you are doing it to gain attention. The trap is that, whatever that is lovely is perverted the instant it is used as a way to boost one's ego. The healing begins. Painting doesn't actually alter. It's that the painter loses sight of the original motivation behind their work. For the sake of making, not for recognition or a legacy. You have to rediscover why you started, why you loved, why you played, and why you achieved in order to escape the trap of specialness. To go back to that area of yourself that is unaffected by fear or comparison. That's the hallowed area. That's the beginning of your real life. Here's something small but crucial. The ego wants more than merely to feel exceptional when you succeed. In pain, it also aspires to feel unique. Did you notice? No one has been hurt like I have, it states. Nobody can relate to my suffering. My tale is really terrible. Therefore, we strive to be extraordinary even when we are depressed. Why? Because it provides the ego with a feeling of significance and identity. However, suffering is not exclusive. It applies to everyone. Furthermore, that isn't a dismissal. It's a freedom, because you stop hiding your grief the moment you recognize that it is a human experience rather than a flaw. You cease to defend it. You no longer identify with it. And healing starts in that openness. Being the most broken or the most healed is not necessary for you. All you need to do is be willing. And light comes from that openness. You reestablish a connection with something far more profound than your ego when you let go of the drive to be unique despite your traumas. You reestablish contact with your everlasting self. Not the narrative, the character, the successes or failures, but the consciousness that underlies it all. That's silent presence. You've been observing, feeling, and witnessing that silence since the beginning. It doesn't have to be well known, acclaimed, or favored. All you have to do is remember it, because you don't need the outside world to validate your value once you recognize that aspect of yourself. You're aware of it already, and that is the point at which love is genuine. Joy becomes effortless at that point. At that point, peace ceases to be a theory and becomes your default condition. I'm aware that this won't always be rewarded by the world. Noise, volume, branding, and spectacle are all celebrated around the world. You, however, are the quiet secret, here to live honestly, profoundly, and quietly. The world's acclaim is not necessary for you. All you have to do is listen to your own heart, because you will find a wealth that cannot be purchased or sold if you can live in harmony with your nature, even when no one else notices. You will become untouchable, not in a haughty way, but in your presence, unfazed by the fluctuations of your reputation, since you will have had a hands-on experience with something that is more valuable than all the gold in the world. I'll tell you something now that you already know deep inside. You don't have to feel extraordinary to have the most wonderful moments in life. These are the times when you no longer give a damn about who you are. Recall a night spent among the sky. You cried when you laughed. After morning, a deep breath. A sunrise, a kiss, a touch. There were times when you weren't striving to be someone you weren't proving yourself to be. You were simply awake, entire, and present. Furthermore, since truth is never loud, it's noteworthy that those most significant instances have nothing to do with being unique. A spotlight is not necessary for it. It doesn't dispute. It's not an attention-seeking campaign. It just is. The ego, you see, is constantly terrified of going extinct. It believes that you are somehow less alive if no one is paying attention to you. However, being noticed has nothing to do with being alive. And everything of it has to do with paying attention. Noting this breath, this light, this spectacular moment disguised as every day. Here's the little-known secret. You feel more like you belong the more you observe. You feel more the more you soften. You recall who you truly are more when you stop attempting to be someone you're not. So it's okay if you're feeling lost at the moment. Let that defeat serve as a starting point. Give up your self-perception. Get rid of your assume. Let go of the drive to impress. Give up on your script. Am I willing to be no one for a moment in order to remember everything? Is a question you should ask yourself in the remaining silence. Because you can finally be anyone when you're nobody. You're neither confined to a single identity, nor are you set in it. You become free, receptive, and flowing like water. However, this does not imply that you will vanish from existence. Quite the opposite. You'll be more present. You want to see? Not because you want to be noticed. Instead of being above life, you want to be with it. Participation, not dominance, is what you seek. You want to produce because it makes you happy, not to prove anything. Indeed, others may notice. They may even celebrate you. It's okay. But since you're still dancing whether they clap or not, it no longer owns you. The true emancipation lies in that. To dance because it helps you remember that you are alive, not because it makes you unique. Now, if you didn't have to be someone, who would you be? If it was never praised, how would you respond? If you weren't attempting to be wise, what would you say? And since giving is in your nature, what would you offer if you didn't want to be remembered? These are serious inquiries. They are entrances. You could discover that being unique was never the intention if you go through them. That life has always called you to be authentic, not better, not flawless, not enlightened, just present, honest, and wholly yourself. Not perform, not put under pressure, not wear a mask. Furthermore, the greatest power of all is sincerity, not uniqueness. Therefore, give up attempting to stand out. Remind yourself that you already belong. You've always done so. Welcome back.